Epictetus once said, "The chief task in life is simply this, to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control and which have to do with the choices I actually control. Where then do I look for good and evil? Not to uncontrollable externals, but within myself to the choices that are my own." Our own sense of well-being is endangered when we cling to an unstable and unpredictable outside world. Around 2,000 years ago, the Stoic philosopher Epictetus noticed that people feel overwhelmed and dragged down because they worry about too many things. His solution, however, is not to abandon worry altogether, but to choose wisely what to worry about and let go of what is unimportant. According to Epictetus, what matters and what doesn't matter are related to our position as rational beings in a constantly changing environment. This reality is clear in the underlying principle of his philosophy: the dichotomy of control. Some things are under our control while others are not. If we can focus on the things we do control, we'll be in a stronger position. But if we neglect these things and focus on what we can't control, we'll be in a position of weakness, especially when we cling to what doesn't depend on us. We are setting ourselves up for a life of suffering. But what exactly are these things we cling to, and why is it better to let them go? This video explores the philosophy of Epictetus and what he believes we should prioritize in order to achieve happiness and contentment, what we should let go of and how to do it. The two main sources of Epictetus's philosophy are the Discourses and the Enchiridion, which contain his teachings recorded by one of his students, Arrian. These ancient texts can teach us many things about how to achieve contentment and inner tranquility, as well as how to strengthen our minds against external circumstances that we usually consider harmful. In the first chapter of the Discourses, Epictetus emphasizes that external circumstances can only harm us if we allow them to, that is, if we cling to them. He uses the example of exile to illustrate his point, saying that being exiled doesn't stop him from keeping a smile on his face or from being cheerful and serene. However, if he had clung to the idea that exile was a great tragedy, or to his belongings and the people from whom he was separated, he would have experienced agony. Epictetus understood that the possibility of being exiled was not under his control, but his ability to be joyful and serene was. Therefore, he didn't worry about the former and concentrated on the latter. By focusing only on what we can control and letting go of the rest, nothing external to us can harm us. Now the question arises, what is under our control and what is not? Epictetus clarifies this in the first chapter of the Enchiridion, where he says, "Some things are under our control and others are not. The things under our control are our opinions, desires, aversions, and in short, all our actions. The things that are not under our control include the body, property, reputation, command, and in a word, anything that is not one of our actions." So in short, the outside world is not under our control, but our way of acting and reacting to it is under our control. Epictetus encourages us not to cling to what is not under our control, because these things are fickle, fragile, and unreliable. Yes, the outside world is enchanting and tempting, often luring us with ephemeral pleasures. We crave what the world has to offer and cling to everything that captivates our mind and senses. However, losing what we cling to is painful. Unfortunately, what we gain and lose is subject to luck. Therefore, if we tie our happiness to things we can't control, we'll be at the mercy of luck. It's crucial to stop attaching ourselves to things we can't control if we want to develop a solid and lasting sense of well-being. Fortunately, Epictetus offers us guidance on how to do this, highlighting the power of our reasoning capacity and downplaying the importance of things outside of it. For this video, I've organized these lessons in a different way, based on what Epictetus said beyond the first chapter of the Enchiridion. So I've allocated 3 categories of things that are best renounced, according to the Stoic perspective. Before going on to the first one, give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the Stoics' wisdom. 1. Stop clinging to objects, people, and power. It is part of human nature to become attached not only to the people we relate to, but also to material things. We often confuse attachment, which has a possessive dimension, with love. Thus, we deeply enjoy the company of someone we love, but suffer when that person moves away from our lives. What's even more tragic is that we often suffer the loss of someone before it even happens, only in our imagination. Being attached to someone or something implies constant pain, due to resistance to the possible and inevitable separation from what we are attached to. Sometimes the fear of loss or abandonment becomes an obsession, which means that our life revolves around avoiding separation. Which brings to mind the famous phrase, "If you don't love yourself, you'll always be chasing after people who don't love you either." The same goes for power. The ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus observed that power is insatiable, and the pursuit of power often leads to an ever greater desire for it. It seems that the more we have, the more we want to have. People corrupted by power have caused countless miseries because they were unwilling to give it up and were always looking for more, which only leads to stress. The irony of power is that, although it suggests control, power itself is not under our control, which means it can be given or taken away at any time. Fighting against the impermanent nature of existence is foolish. If we wish to live in accordance with nature, as the Stoics propose, we must adapt to transience. But how to do that? Epictetus had simple but profound advice on how to deal with the world in relation to objects, people, and power. He suggested that we treat life like a banquet. Epictetus said, "Is something offered to you? Reach out your hand and take your portion sparingly. Has it passed you by? Don't try to hold it back. Has it not yet reached you? Don't extend your desire towards it, but wait until it arrives. Do this with regard to children, spouses, public office, wealth, and you will become a worthy guest at the feasts of the gods." He goes on to say that when we can even refuse the things that are offered to us, we will not only be invited to the feasts of the gods, but also to their domain. This suggests that we should live according to nature, or simply the way things are, rather than conflicting with it. Fighting against the intrinsic nature of the universe is only frustrating, and the universe would win every time. Epictetus wants to strengthen us against the pain of loss by changing our perspective on the things we love. Instead of considering that we own something or have the right to own something or be with someone, we could see everything we have as borrowed. Never say, "I've lost that," but rather, "I've given that back." If your son died, he's been returned. Your wife died, she's been returned. Was your property stolen? Well, wasn't that returned in the same way? But he who took it is wicked. What difference does it make to you who the donor appointed to take it? As long as he has given it to you to possess, take care of it, but don't see it as yours, just as travelers see a hotel. When we consider this, Epictetus's view of things is not far from the truth. In reality, we own nothing except our ability to think, because if we owned our children, spouses, and property, we wouldn't be able to lose them. So the idea that we are only temporarily in possession fits better with reality, because the time always comes to give back what is not ours. Clinging to temporary possessions is a formula for pain. Therefore, according to Epictetus, it's okay to own things and even enjoy them, as long as we are willing to let them go at any time. Be mindful of the journey inside as well as the outside, and know thyself. After all, that's what counts most. 2. Stop clinging to other people's opinions. Oh, how we worry about what others think of us. Many people will do anything to be seen well. But why? That's the question. Especially nowadays, not being liked doesn't put our lives at risk in most cases, because we no longer live in the tribal era, when acceptance by the tribe was a matter of life and death. However, the fact that people have a positive opinion of us does have its benefits. For example, when we're likable, it's easier to make friends. When we're attractive, it's easier to find a romantic partner. When we are seen as intelligent and capable, companies are more likely to hire us. But Epictetus believes that all these external benefits are inferior to our inner tranquility. He advises us not to be sad if we are not invited to a party, especially if we don't have much interest in the owner of the party. Being invited to a party comes at a cost, which is the obligation to praise and be present. If we're not willing to invest time and energy in socializing with a certain person, we shouldn't be surprised if we're not invited to their party. We can't have everything. If we're not invited, we may not experience the joys of that party, but we will have the benefit of not having to praise someone we don't want to praise, and of not submitting to something that doesn't interest us. This can be seen as a valuable reward. Regardless of the pleasure it brings, constantly seeking the approval of others is exhausting. Praising people we don't want to praise, attending social events that don't interest us. Why is that? It's not to maintain our peace of mind, which can't be achieved if we're always worried about what others think. Furthermore, Epictetus suggests that we should laugh at ourselves, be mocked and scorned, if that is the price to pay for equanimity, freedom, and tranquility. We must be willing to be considered fools, and when someone speaks ill of us, we can reply, "He doesn't know my other faults. Otherwise, he wouldn't have mentioned just those." Ultimately, people's opinions are beyond our control, but the degree to which they affect us is within our control. Can we cling to people's opinions and let them influence our thoughts and feelings? Or can we get the most out of them before letting them fade into the past? It all comes down to skillfully managing the tool we've been given, our ability to form opinions about opinions. Remember that it is not the one who speaks badly or strikes a blow who is insulting, but the principle that represents these things as insulting. So when someone provokes you, remember that it is your own opinion that is provoking you. Remember that this shouldn't affect you, nor should you let it be a problem in your life, because if you let it penetrate your mind, anxiety and agony will set in. If you want to deal with these feelings as the Stoics did, I've left a link in the first comment to help you with this situation. Take a look. 3. Stop clinging to results and ideas. There is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond the power or our will. Epictetus. The universe is relentless and unpredictable. Trying to control it is a losing battle. Trying to change what has already happened or what will happen in the future is futile. Yet many people spend most of their time worrying about what should have happened in the past, what should be happening now, and what should happen in the future. The more we resist, the more painful life becomes. Epictetus compares this resistance to fighting a servant. Although a servant is expected to be obedient, Epictetus emphasizes that the servant is so important to us that it must be in his power not to always conform to this idea. Ultimately, people's opinions are beyond our control, but the degree to which they affect us is within our control. Can we cling to people's opinions and let them influence our thoughts and feelings, or can we get the most out of them before letting them fade into the past? It all comes down to skillfully managing the tool we've been given, our ability to form opinions about opinions. Remember that it is not the one who speaks badly or strikes a blow who is insulting, but the principle that represents these things as insulting. So when someone provokes you, remember that it is your own opinion that is provoking you. Epictetus emphasizes that we can't control the world, but we can control our attitude towards it. Someone can insult us, but we can't control what we think or feel about it. Someone can take our possessions or steal our money, but we can't control whether or not we get depressed about it. Our spouses can cheat on us, but it's up to us to decide to what extent this will affect us. The course of life is not in our hands. If we still cling to these things, we will lose. But if we accept them and focus on living well, despite the vicissitudes of fortune, we will win. Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly. What doesn't transmit light creates its own darkness. This Stoicism concept shows us how we see things is really important to overcome them. If we see them as negative, it will be negative. If we see them as positive, it will be positive. It is because of this thought that the Stoics had to understand that they need a vision of grace on the bad things, like the obstacle is the way. Click on the screen right now.